met Katherine Needleman, the oboist, at the Cabrillo Festival in the summer of 2016. She had just played a beautiful performance of the Christopher Rouse Oboe Concerto, and I looked for her in the hall, and I mentioned the idea of maybe working together on a concerto. She wrote to me a couple weeks later and was enthusiastic about the idea. This was into September, October 2016. Of course, the presidential election was just around the corner, and it seemed that crisis would be averted and Hillary Clinton would make it into the White House. When that didn't happen, it was such a shock to my system that I suddenly didn't know where the music was going to come from. It's one thing to write an opera, but it's quite another thing to come up with music out of thin air, so to speak. And I was really forced to ask myself the question, where does the music come from? And I discovered that for me, it was from a belief in those things inherent in our humanity which are worth celebrating. Problem is, at this time, in the wake of this national crisis, I didn't feel there was anything worth celebrating. So for months, this unwritten oboe concerto represented my own struggle with this whole crisis. And I was on a flight going somewhere, and in the in-flight entertainment, I noticed a film which had just won the Academy Award for Best Picture, Moonlight. And I watched it, and it truly did, at least to some extent, restore my faith in people. Not just because of what the film represented and the message of the film, which was a very beautiful one, but just because it was so well made, so beautifully made, and it really stayed with me. And so I decided to call the piece Moonlight, and the first movement is in fact called Moonlight, and is in some sense a reaction to the film, a musical reaction. The second movement I call Folly. It's very challenging music for the oboe, but Katherine swears that it can all be played. I tried to capture the whole ridiculous climate of insanity around this current administration. So the music is sort of brutish, bullheaded, insidious, threatening, and other times circus-like. In spite of the difficulty, the enormous challenge of composing this concerto in such a dark time, I remain very grateful and excited to work with Marin, Alsop, and the Baltimore Symphony, and I'm very grateful to my friends Betty and Joe Hirsch for their support of this project.